Next up, we'll continue talking about colors, specifically some of the values, the different systems that we can use to reference colors. This is something that will come up a lot, not just with the color and the background color properties, but also things like border and shadows. There are so many things that we can assign a color or associate a color with. So we've already seen some examples of named colors. These are probably the easiest colors to get started with, but also the most limited set. Each browser, all browsers these days, recognize what is at 150 named colors. So these are colors that have a specific name in English that you can reference. And every browser is supposed to know that, medium violet red is this exact shade, this exact color. So some of them I've put on this slide here just to show you. They range from simple names like orange and red and pink to dark khaki and medium aquamarine and light sky blue. We use some of them already. So anytime we have a property like color or background color that is expecting a color value, we can use those names. So what do I have here? We've got, it's so ugly. If I want to make the background color instead of plum, I wanted to make the background color, one of these would be light sky blue. Or if I like, how about a papaya whip? I can just copy that name, papaya whip, right there. Save. Refresh the page and the browser knows the color I'm referring to. So these are easy in some ways, although remembering the names of all of these is pretty difficult. But even with that, we only have 140 different colors available, which is pretty limited given the fact that most computer monitors these days display 16 or so million different colors. Now, we can't all perceive those colors as humans. Maybe some of us can, but the point is that there's a lot more nuance and there's a lot more options than just 140 different colors. So there are different color systems that we could use to reference those colors. The problem with named colors is that we can't give a name to every single possible color value. I mean, you could, but there'd be no way to reference them. 16 million different names. It just makes no sense. The first system we'll take a look at are RGB colors, red, green, and blue. So if you've ever seen a pixel up close or a computer display, the arrangements might vary. So as you can see here, but behind the scenes, there are 3 different colors of light, red, green, and blue. And these colors can be added together to form every other color that you might need to display. So this RGB color model goes beyond the world of the web or browsers or even just computers, televisions. I mean, there's cameras. It's used all over the place. It's an example of an additive color system where we have different colors of light, red, green, and blue. And you can add them or mix them together to make different colors. So you can see it here. For example, red and green makes yellow. Red, green, and blue makes white. So you don't really have to get super familiar with how it all works. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to know the basic syntax. So each channel that we have in a red, green, blue color in the browser goes from 0 to 255. So 0 would mean off. So if we had 0 red, there's no red in this color. If we have 255 red, it's maxed out red. So here's an example or a couple of examples and the specific syntax that we use with CSS to reference a color using RGB. So we write the letters RGB, then we have parentheses, and then our 3 channels in order, R, then G, then B. So here I have maxed out red 255 and I have no green and no blue. So we are just pure red. Here I've done something similar, but I have zeroed out red and green and I've maxed out blue RGB. So we get pure blue. Here at the bottom, I have zeroed out everything. So we get black 000. There's no light. If you are imagining these 3 channels of light that we are turning on or off our sliders, I like to think of like at a recording studio, those sliders on the desk that you move up and down, all of them are down here. 000 gives us black, and then there's a more complex color. You can see that we have some red, some green, and some blue, but we have a lot more red and blue than we have green, and we end up with this purplish color. Now, the thing to remember here is that you're not expected to be able to come up with these codes yourself. These are just things that you find from color pickers or from color palettes online. I'll show you an example. If we go over to this color picker, this is just one I like, but there are built-in color pickers on your machine. There are color picking apps. There's websites, you just search color picker. I'm pretty sure Google just comes up with one. Anyway, if you play around, you want to find a color that you like, can see over here, the red, the green, and the blue channels are being displayed. So let's say I want a nice sort of olive green. I don't, that's not really olive. Let's see. I need a bit more yellow. I think maybe something like that. I don't even know if olive is the right term here. But let's say like this color, it's 89 red, 151 green, and 0 blue. So to use that, I just need to remember that 89, 151, and let's give our background color to our H2. So how about our paragraphs? No, they're already olive. So let's do the background color for this H2. RGB parentheses, red was 89, green was 151, I think, and blue was 0. Is that correct? And if we refresh our page, there we go. That's the color that I selected. So there is no need for you to be able to tell me, if I need to make a very light pinkish color. You don't need to be able to tell me the exact numbers. But if you know the basics, you know that we are going to need some red, right? And if we just play around with it over time, you get more comfortable with it. But you'll see we're maxed out red. And then we have a lot of green and a lot of blue, because remember that this is an additive color system. And the way that we get white is by maxing everything out. And the way we get black is by zeroing everything out. So if we want a pinkish color, it's going to be mostly, or it's going to be fully red, but still a lot of green and a lot of blue, because it's a lot of light to make something lighter. Fortunately, this is not something you really need to be an expert at. You need to just be an expert at this syntax, which is nice and easy. Just RGB and then parentheses, R and G, and then B. Each one goes from 0 to 255. Copy the colors and then the codes from the color palette and color pickers. There's a lot of them. If you search for color picker, pretty sure, yeah, one pops up right here from Google, so you can find your colors there. Copy that. If you're working for a company, they usually have a palette that you are going to be limited to. So you have the color codes ready to go, and we've only covered RGB so far. Next up, we're going to talk about hexadecimal, which is a slightly different way of representing the colors, but the same principle.